what has happened without you quite realizing it. And I know we're not completely done with this assignment yet. You've still got till the end of the week to submit it. And we'll do some variations on it as well as tackle some details of topics that you may have just touched on, but not really got into in depth. So that's the goal for week 5. But one reason and a lot of good conversation has happened around why are we doing this, which is great. I will say one goal that you did reach without quite realizing it is that you created information. And I know this is a very, uh, let's call it, I don't want to mince words here. What does information mean? Well, it seems to be a very popular term, but as there's also another one called too much information, TMI, all that kind of stuff. So information, though, is just something that, in a sense, can be understood. Your database, for example, really isn't understandable at all. You have to manipulate it in some ways. There's no hierarchy. There's no real meaning to it, to other than to a human, which is why I wanted you to look at it, why I wanted you to manage it, you to improve it, etc. Now, the interesting thing is once you've added some structure to it, you have information, which is readable, as I said, by another computer, which is super important. We talked a little bit about screen readers. That's even more interesting, right? If you don't really think so strongly about the web being a visual only media, which it is not, and it hasn't been for a long time, you think of it as being how do you structure stuff so that you can find it, use it, etc. So, one thing I want to do really quick, just speaking of HTML, is to take a look at one of a few sites. You can go on any site you want. If you don't know how to do inspect, you can just see the code underlying it. But there's a couple things here that are just sort of interesting. One is the things that you guys are doing, such as here's one of my favorites. H1 is always the logo. Sorry, I've had debates about this my whole career. Because it is the context of the entire page. So if you're really into structured documents and the theories behind it, it just makes me happy. Here we go. There's that good old nav, right? So, yep, that thing up there is a nav, and they call it a nav. This is, by the way, not all that common. In fact, you could probably see, let's see, thankfully, they don't have an ID equals nav. It's called AC global nav. So, whatever. This ID is sort of a way to fake whatever this used to be, because you'll get to it in a second. Divs, divs, divs. You might go to a site and you're just going to see nothing but divs. What's a div? Well, it's on that sheet, and none of you hopefully used it, because guess what a div is? It's nothing. It doesn't mean anything. That's actually its biggest plus. It was kind of a tag. This and span are two tags that were invented back when they came up with this language to kind of do nothing. Div happens to be a block tag, meaning it'll create space after it, and span will not. Big whoop, right? But it is interesting because guess what they do? They have this main. Look at that, main. Well, that's a nice, fun little tag to put all your sections in, you see? And then what is happening here is what's going to happen to you. Now, maybe not exactly, but within this section, there's some stuff. Let's not get too worked up about it, right? In this section, there's some stuff. Yep, bunch of divs. But they got their heart in the right place. There's a footer. If you read this, it's certainly fairly clear from an information architecture standpoint, like what is what. So yes, you've got a nav area and a main area and a footer and a header area. Or I don't think they're not using headers, but they should. And then they're dividing up their content into different pieces, of which they can display or not display or do kind of whatever they want. Here, I'm asking for more tags to be used here because I think it's a missed opportunity to add more value within rather than just having a list, or in this case a div, or something like that. But people have different opinions. There's nothing, by the way, there is nothing that these choices have to do with the word code. These are just language selections. So that's what I wanted you to understand. This is just words. A tag, by the way, you can make up a tag, which is part of what we'll go into in a second, and it'll work fine. Actually, all tags that are not understood are just treated like a div tag. So good for them, right? So go ahead, make up all the tags you want. Now, the idea of having anyone understand or use or take advantage of your tags has to do with speaking the same language. And so that's why if you have a area called nav, a person who is developing a screen reader, which does not have a visual interface, will absolutely latch on to every item into that nav and look for it and use it to help someone, for example, navigate from here to the stuff about the iPhone. So you're just making it easier for other people to develop software and or things that help someone understand this content. And you can just think of Google or any other search engine as being that writ large. You know, they're trying their best to understand the entire web, which good luck with that.